It's been a long week, right? Are you ready to wind down? Why not? It's time for the Wine Time Fridays podcast with Shelley and Phil. Neither are sommeliers, but both have a deep passion for life, each other, and of course, delicious wine. And now, here to talk about this week over a glass of wine is Shelley and Phil. It's wine time!
Hello and welcome to another episode of Wine Time Fridays with Shelley and Phil and another guest. Episode 229, September 6th, Shelley. By the way, happy National Chianti Day and happy Friday. It's wine time.
Yay!
So last week we put a bow on Washington Wine Month, the second one. We also kind of had some Finger Lakes wines because of the Finger Lakes Wine Month is also August. We're all over the place. We are having Finger Lakes wine. We are going to have Canadian wine the next 2 weeks. And today we're going to, I think for the first time on my palate, have wines from Missouri.
It's going to be interesting.
So excited for this. We would like to welcome Jerry Eisterhold, the owner and founder of TerraVox's, just outside of Kansas City. Jerry, welcome to Wine Time Fridays.
Thank you for having me. Can I ask a quick question? What wines do you have on the docket there?
Well, so your winemaker and Michael diligently chose 4 wines that they thought would really showcase the wines of TerraVox. So the very first one we've got is Albania.
2021 Albania.
A 2021 Albania. By the way, if you look real closely on that label, I love it. It's backwards unless you showed it up in the mirror, which I think is kind of cool. This is the grape. Am I not mistaken on that, Jerry?
It is the name of the grape. And the reason it's backwards is that the TTB would not allow us to print the word Albania on the label because they thought that we might be defrauding the public into thinking that we had actually grapes from Albania. So
Wow.
hence the backwards printing.
So
and what else is online? Because I can have
yep. So we've got the Stark Star Rosé, and then I'm not sure the correct order, but the Cloeta and the Lomanto will be the other two. And herein lies why we're having you on and why you've so graciously agreed to be our guest. It seems like some of these grapes that we're going to talk about today, who I'm guessing most of our listeners have no clue what they are. I know they're like some of your grapes, the Cloeta, the Hidalgo. Norton, I think that one might be a semi-known grape. The Stark Star, a Trumanet, Vinoles, and Wetumpka. I mean, these are all grapes. And the fact that you would get in trouble because you're misleading
With the real grape.
with the real grape. Yeah. So let's give this a proper Wine Time Fridays toast to health, wealth, and abundance, gratitude, romance, and
Peace on earth. Cheers.
and to Jerry and TerraVox.
Well, thank you. You should know I just had some Albania just a second ago before I came in the room, so the memory is fresh.
And
Okay.
you have
Oh, wow.
and this wine, what I'm seeing with your wines, the alcohol is very low.
Very low.
This is only 9% alcohol, which is really nice.
And yet bone dry. Yes.
So we can't really say
Well, a lot of these grapes, I mean, they have some structure, they have some acid, they have some tannins, but generally not a very high Brix. So you can ferment them dry, and you still get a decent, a flavorful wine.
We are constantly touting, suggesting, urging our listeners, go outside of Chardonnay, go outside of Cabernet
the
Sauvignon.
European grape variety.
Yeah, go outside what you know. Try the Vino Verdes, try a Carmenere, blah, blah, blah. We, for the first time, had Finger Lakes wine last week, and we are for the first time trying not only wines from Missouri, but grapes we've never had a taste of before. And at first taste on this, I'm like,
Really nice.
wow. Am I getting lemon zest sort of thing on there?
Some acidity.
Yeah. Jerry, please tell us a little bit about this grape, what you would pair with it, and then we need to get into the story of how all of this came around.
Well, the grape itself, so when I first moved up to this property back in 1996, I heard a rumor of, it was a Dr. Reynolds up in St. Joseph, Missouri, which is a little bit north of us, who had also played around with some of these grapes. And in talking to him, he thought Albania was the one of all that he had tried that had the most promise to be, disease resistance, very fruitful, makes a good wine, a little bit on the pulpy side, but you can get by that in the process. And so that's why we tracked that one down and used it as one of the roughly 60 varietals that we uncovered to plant this initial vineyard here.
That's a lot of varieties.
It is.
For native grapes.
What would you pair with this?
Oh, one of the things we run into is people ask, like, what are these wines like? And we're trying to get them to understand that these are their own grapes and they're not really like anything. On the other hand, you have to kind of give them a simile to say, well, it's kind of sort of like, in this case, I think a Sauvignon Blanc as much as
Sure.
anything out there.
Yeah.
And pairing, the stuff that you would do with Sauvignon Blanc, nice poached salmon, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, Shelley, this is the second week in a row. I feel like oysters off the grill would go real well with this too.
I wouldn't fight you on that.
Oh, that's good. I don't want to get into a fight early on. This is delicious, by the way. This is absolutely delicious. $27 at the winery or online. Let's start with that. Jerry, do you ship to Idaho?
And other places.
I'm pretty sure we use one of the services, Vino Shipper, and I think they take care of all the translations to the wonderful diversity of state regulations that we have in the wine industry.
Yeah, there's 2 states that are just not very easy to deal with, but I don't think Idaho is one of those. So that's good. That's good. So go ahead.
You mentioned 60 varieties. How many do you grow and how many do you make wine from?
Well, last year we made 37 different vintages. We start with about 60, and the first kind of filter is which of these grapes are vigorous and disease resistant, and frankly, which ones do not taste of Labrusca, because one of our missionary impulses is to get people to be aware of the diversity of grapes that are grown in the U.S. and the Midwest in particular, because there's some 31 genuses of grapes that were identified by this guy, Thomas Volney Munson, of which 27 of them grow in the Midwest. And only one of them is Labrusca, that has that sort of foxy flavor that most people associate with American wines. And we're trying to show that these grapes have other characteristics beyond that. So anything that was redolent of that was sort of on the cutting block.
Wow. Okay.
We had a geologist on 2 weeks ago, Kevin Pogue, talking about the Missoula floods, which is something that's very unique for this area in terms of terroir. But we mentioned we were going to have you on Missouri Wines at TerraVox, and he says, Missouri Wines had the first AVA in the nation. And I said, I understand that. Who would have known that? A whole bunch of great native grapes. And you were making great wines in Missouri. And then, of course, our wine word of the week came around. In fact, let me just do that right now. The wine word of the week, the social web wine word of the week, is Prohibition. Ugly word for those of us who like wine. I wasn't alive at that time, but I'm like, that's so stupid. But yes, in the context of the wine industry, Prohibition referred to the purity in the United States 1920 to 1933, when the manufacture, sale, and transportation of alcoholic beverages, including wine, were banned by law. And why that pertains to this episode is that really screwed up everything in Missouri in the wine industry. It pretty much wiped them off the map. And was around 1965 that started kind of resurrecting again. Give or take.
It was a very slow ramp up, but yeah, but there's some interesting things about Prohibition in that in Missouri, for whatever reason, I don't know if this was by mandate or just culture, they essentially tore out all the winemaking infrastructure. But in California, they did not. So with the repeal of the Volstead Act, California was in a much better position to rebound. And Missouri was stuck with acres and acres of Concord, which was going into making Welch's grape juice and things like that. But you mentioned in passing that Prohibition was stupid, and I think one of the books I read recently was a thing called Last Call, and it talked about Prohibition. I think because this may be more of a digression than you guys want, but the government was basically funded by excise taxes on liquor and alcohol for many, many years. And then someone invented this thing called the income tax, which meant that the government could be funded with taxes or that form of taxes, which meant that then alcohol was fair game to be subject to the anti-alcohol leagues and so forth. But as a result of the passing of Prohibition, alcohol consumption went down by 30%, not 100% and not 90%.
That is kind of interesting.
Because you have the religious exception, you have the medical exception, you have the industrial exception, there's the home winemaking exception, and then the organized crime exception. So you put all those together and you pretty much have the alcohol industry intact, but for those suckers who actually read the letter of the law and tore out their wine presses.
It's my understanding you could buy grapes, and then they would come with the description: "Do not ferment these grapes."
That's right.
Or you'll make wine.
Or else you will end up with wine. So
which is illegal. So don't do that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's just so interesting.
My mother talked about Prohibition, and she said that they would order by the radio waves or something. They would order hula hoops, and then they would know what they wanted.
Hula hoops?
Hula hoops, some obscure name that was not alcohol.
Oh wow!
Oh yeah, there's black chicken. There's all sorts of code words and everything. So it was a lively time.
Wow.
And all the enforcer agents, I mean, they tend to be very poorly paid, but it was a highly desired job because, of course, you could sort of tap into those income streams that were sort of off the books, we shall say. But we digress. But that explains a little bit why this, the rich heritage of Missouri. And Missouri was chock-a-block with a lot of Germans who had this sort of long view of the industry, and we're doing a lot of fundamental work on breeding grapes and figuring out viticultural practices and things, and really laying the groundwork for global viticulture. But all of that just went up in smoke with Prohibition.
That's so sad.
It is, but we're back, and we don't want to dwell on the negative. Mm-hmm. We are going to dwell on the positive. And right now, this Albania actually, honestly, would become one of my very favorite wines to drink all year round. For sure in the summer, man. This thing has got Christmas to it, and it's really delicious. It's absolutely delicious. We're going to take one quick break. When we come back, we're going to go to a rosé.
Okay.
Welcome back to Wine Time Fridays. We're here with TerraVox's owner and founder, Jerry Eisterhold, and tasting through some wines that we've really never heard of these grapes, let alone tasted them. The first one was Albania, a delicious, crisp white wine that I'm finishing Shelley's right now. We're on the first Friday of Missouri Wine Month. Mm-hmm. Again, California does not have a wine month.
Yeah, they don't need one, I guess.
Well, I guess that's stupid, but
Another stupid thing.
sound like John
You
Cobalt.
do sound like John Cobalt.
So right now we're going to open the 2023 Stark Star Rosé, and that is not backwards on the label, which is good. We don't have to try to figure that out. This is the grape Stark Star. Am I correct on that, Jerry?
You are. Stark Star was actually, most of these grapes were bred by a guy named T.V. Munson. This was developed by Professor, I think it was James Bachman out of Arkansas. And we found an ad in an old paper from the 1870s or 80s that featured Professor Bachman standing in front of Stark Star. And there was just a prodigious amount of grapes on these vines. But the ad talked about the probity and the good character of Professor Bachman as opposed to the grapes themselves. But my understanding, this was originally, I think, called Uncle Sam. And then there are several conflicting stories about how it came to be called Stark Star. And I think one is that Stark Brothers Nursery, who are the ones in Louisiana, Missouri, who developed or created Golden Delicious apples. So they're globally important nursery. This Stark Star was once the foundation of the Missouri port industry. And we managed to find 100 cuttings of that and brought them up to try to propagate them, from which we got a single vine that was viable. But once you have one vine, you can layer it and propagate more, and that's why it took about 12 years to fill in one row of this grape. But it's as you taste, it's extremely productive. It's very late ripening in the season. It has a wee bit of Labrusca in its parentage, but it's I think it's a daughter of Norton primarily.
It's got a very interesting nose. Yeah, a little. Am I right? A little petrol aspect to it.
Yeah, you get some melon, some watermelon, maybe in there.
Yeah, but it's a richness. It's not a bright. It's a rich melon taste. It's a little. Seems like a little
an
deeper.
Overripe cantaloupe.
An overripe cantaloupe is absolutely perfect. Yes.
Yeah, at the moment.
Where I would say don't necessarily eat the overripe cantaloupe, but definitely drink this. Let's have a twirl.
Cheers. Still have the melon in the taste too.
Yeah,
Very
it's
good.
coating
It's fruitier, still pretty dry, but a little sweeter than the other one.
Yeah,
and the alcohol is 8.5.
8.5% ABV. Yep.
Yeah. So with all these grapes, actually, there's a thing called typicity that we're trying to figure out. What's the best expression of this particular grape? And Stark Star, we're searching. I mean, we can also make it into a port. A rosé seemed to be. It was just that particular year that we try things and we see what the results are, how people like it, and then we take another whack at it the next year.
Jerry, the finish on this is still going.
Yep. There's a reason that it was once very widely planted. I'm not sure it is anymore. I'm not even aware of any other vineyards that have this. I assume that there are because it was, as I said, it was once back in the 40s or 50s. It was once pretty extensively planted in Missouri and Arkansas.
Wow.
Wow, this is just so much fun.
Do you also make a red out of this grape?
We can. That year we just went all in for the rosé.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you talk a little bit about you mentioned T.J. Munson as really TV Munson, thank you, as the he's the rock star of the whole Missouri wine industry in that he was at the forefront of a lot of this stuff. And wasn't that the book you picked up and it blew you away at some point? Why don't you talk a little bit about that and then what the process was? Because you got really obsessed after reading that book, did you not?
Well, I don't know. I would probably, for my own self-image, call it something else. But I got curious.
Sure.
So in the course of doing my museum design work, I found this book randomly. It wasn't I was chasing after grapes or grape information or whatever, but in this he had done the exhibit for the USDA Pavilion at the Columbia Exposition in 1893. And out of that, he had developed this book that reported on all the genuses of grapes that he had developed, and as well as several hundred of the varietals of the cultivars he had bred from all this genetic diversity. And that began the process of trying to track down these things, many of which, of course, are gone. But a lot of them came from his old nursery down in Denison, Texas, is where a community college is now built. And, the vines were still there. They had been untended for decades, but they were still alive, which tells you a little bit of something that they were determined to exist and they deserve to be here.
Right.
So getting cuttings and propagating, and that is what sort of took many, many years to establish a trial vineyard of 12 vines of each of these. And from that, you can say, well, let's mix wine from these 12 plants and see, what the yield is, what the grapes taste like, all that sort of thing. Because you can't necessarily tell what the wine is going to taste like from what the grapes are.
Sure.
Right, yeah.
And how long of a process is that when you've decided, okay, you're going to try this grape, and you plant them? Of course, you can't really do anything for 3 or 4 years, maybe 5 on that first. And so then that's a long process. How many did you initially plant as test vines?
Well, about 60.
Okay.
But the exact number is forever unknown because when you get a bundle of sticks that were harvested by a disgruntled, poorly paid work study student, sometimes the labels fall off. Sometimes things that have 2 different labels are clearly the same grape. Sometimes the same bundle will have 3 different grapes. So we had about a half a dozen out there that we had no idea what they were.
Oh, that's too bad.
And you just deal with the evidence in front of you, which is the grapes themselves.
Sure.
After a couple of years, you can tell a couple of the varietals were just way too vegetal for you get more leaves and greeny growth than you do actual fruit. So those went by the wayside. A few of them seemed to be really affected by phylloxera, so those went by the wayside. And as I said, some of them had that sort of Labrusco foxy taste. It was like, maybe not.
Foxy taste.
So in terms of there's a balance, and this happens with really any winery and winemaker that is trying to think outside the box a little bit. You're thinking way outside the box. There's a balance of making wines that are going to the heritage you're trying to keep going, right? Preserve that heritage, but you also need to sell the wine. So how do you balance between that in terms of keeping with the heritage of those native grapes, as well as trying to educate new consumers of your wines?
Well, that's a really good question because it kind of it's kind of like the museums that we build. They have a high cultural value. They are valued in their communities, but they don't necessarily make money. So there's a disconnect between the finances and the cultural project, we will say. In this case, we have been focused on trying to identify these grapes, see what they are all about, produce them. Now we have to figure out the finances that will make this sustainable. Obviously, They're good wines, they're sustainable, but when you make 37 varietals, clearly the efficiencies are like in the toilet. So we do need to figure out how to get people to be curious about these wines and buy them at retail, because even selling them at wholesale is there's no money in there for us at that point. And generally we have to have people come to the winery are to, like through podcasts such as this, understand the story and what the significance of these grapes are, and be willing to buy a bottle of something that they have no idea what's on the inside. So we're as much encouraging exploration of diversity as we are in encouraging drinking any particular wine.
That's good. And while we're recording this, you actually have an open house going on, right? So
that's right.
How is that going on? How is that doing?
I don't know. There's a bunch of people.
Have to look out.
I don't know. I've locked the door so nobody can come in.
It lasts for a couple more days.
It is.
Is that a Labor Day? Because we're recording this over Labor Day weekend. Is that a Labor Day annual thing for you?
Well, it's the first time we've done it, so the idea is to get a bunch of people up here at any one time, to try to expose bunches of people as opposed to just one or two people at a time, because that's also very inefficient when we're doing other things.
Yep.
Right,
Yep.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So we're going to take another break. And when we come back, I want to talk about Bottle Zero. And we're going to break into red wine.
Okay.
The next one.
Okay. Welcome back to Wine Time Fridays with Shelley and Phil, episode 229 on this September 6th. Wow, that's just amazing. Seahawks play Sunday. Just want to know. Hey, Jerry with TerraVox, are you a big Kansas City fan?
I'm a fan of Kansas City, the city. What do you mean?
In terms of football.
Oh, I'm afraid I'm a fair weather friend. I mean, who's not a fan when they're winning? But generally,
there you go.
Not a sports guy. Maybe I shouldn't admit that, but
no.
Too busy.
Well, I mean, yeah, you can't do everything, right? I was going to ask. We have two more wines to taste. We have the Cloeta and the Lomanto. What would you recommend we open first?
I guess the Cloeta.
The Cloeta it is. This is oh, by the way, we did not say what that Star Rosé ran. $22 at the winery. It's still on my tongue finishing. It is got one of the longest finishes of a rosé that I've had in a long time. We have a 2021 Cloeta. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Who knows? I mean, I've never heard. I mean, I've only seen the word in print, so it's up to you.
Well, Cloeta, either or. This is the grape. 100% on this, Jerry?
Oh yeah, almost. Well, almost all the bottlings are 100% that varietal. Although we do a red and a white blend, and we're going to probably do a rosé blend this year, just to kind of see what the synergies are between between different varietals. But Cloeta is one of our prettiest grapes, and it is one of my favorites. I mean, if anything, people liken it to a Merlot or to a Pinot, which is two completely different flavors.
Definitely a lighter grape like a Pinot. I got to tell you, man, I need to know what you're getting on the nose on this, because there is something. It's almost like blackberry crisp or something.
Blackberry crisp.
I mean, that's so specific. But something baked, a baked dessert. Oh my goodness!
Also get the notes of coffee and chocolate sometimes.
I get some pepper too.
Yeah, maybe it's the chocolate. Cheersing.
Cheers.
Oh my goodness!
That's really good, also.
Man, where have you been hiding all these years? This is 9.4% alcohol.
Wow.
I talked to, I believe it's your marketing director, Michael, a couple days ago. And, I had asked him, because I'm going to be honest, I saw these alcohol numbers, alcohol by volume, and they were telling me these could be pretty sweet, because that's what we're used to. On some of these sweet wines, the alcohol is 8 to 10, 11% or something. And Michael said, well, I'm not going to use his exact terminology or we'll have an explicit tag on this. However, he said, let's just say bone dry. I think he used the word piss dry. I'm not sure what the difference is, but dry is dry.
Michael. Oh.
What's that?
That doesn't sound like Michael. Or maybe it is. I don't know.
But I mean, the fact that these are dry wines at the alcohol levels,
Yeah, that's fantastic.
you know, we're getting into
Alcohol levels over here in Washington, California, are way too hot.
They're
15%.
15%. We have those from Molly Duker down in Australia at some of them are 15.8. I mean, that's ridiculous. It's so hot. You don't necessarily taste it, but you still feel it. And so with these being at 9.4, that's amazing. And I'm seeing sage and pepper and pomegranate and graphite. Maybe graphite is
Pencil.
Yeah. What a little bit. Tell us a little bit about this grape, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, like I said, in terms of visuals, it's one of the prettiest grapes. So just, nice, fairly large, deep blue black berries. And, I think this year we're going to have one of our better years ever, Cleta. So we're going to make a fair amount of it. But it's always one of my most, of all the grapes, it sort of makes a normal, quote unquote, clean red wine. It's just sort of what a wine grape should be.
It is definitely clean. What were some of the grape varietals before you got into this endeavor that you enjoyed drinking before you started TerraVox?
Well, I've gone through phases. When you first discover wine, it's like all over the place. I start mainly, pardon me, mainly in the realm of red wine, and you got Cab and Zin, and then there was a point of time when I think the wine scouts that tend to sell me stuff had a note on their registers that says, "Kate, my wife is zinned out," and that led to a trend
out.
Yeah, to Pinots, and that's kind of where I stuck for a while, because Pinots are just there's a wonderful variation in them, and I like to kind of explore growers that will sell to different winemakers, or winemakers that will buy from different growers. There's all these little variables, and exploring kind of the cloud of possibilities that comes out of the Pinots from a given vineyard or a given winery are just a lot of fun to explore with a group of people.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
They're different everywhere.
And Shelley, you might be surprised. This is actually making me speechless.
I am surprised.
This is astounding. I mean, and this is $39 at the winery or online, which I'm going to be honest, this is tasting like an $80 bottle of wine. And I know price is relative and all of that. I get that. But this is something you would easily pay $80 and drink and know you're getting a lot of value out of that bottle of wine. And yet it's $39. So
yeah,
wow.
No, we've put these up on the table against Wine Spectator award winners and all that, and they'll hold their own.
I don't doubt it for a minute. In fact, they are so unique. And by the way, we're not even talking unique like so far. Oh, they're in the world of a really good glass of wine, but with really unique profiles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow. Sorry. I mean, I'm just enjoying it immensely.
This must be one of your favorites then?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You have a grape. I was looking at your grape pictures on the website. There's one that looks almost white. The bunch of grapes, it's like a super, super light green.
That could be probably Rommel.
Rommel? It could be. Yep. I did write white beside it.
Yeah. So this is an aside, but Munson, was communicating with a lot of these Missouri Germans I referenced early. Communicating means they were send each other cuttings of this, that, and the other thing. So Munson would breed grapes and name them after his buddies, and there are about a dozen that we have that were named after Munch or Rommel or Husband, or guys that were also in the industry that he was working with, and that was his way of kind of honoring them.
Ah. And I wonder where the name delicatessen came from.
I know.
But it's a German word.
Know. He named it after his buddies. He named him after his family. There's a Munson, a T.R. Munson, a Mrs. Munson, a Neva Munson, Fern Munson, Ellen Scott, which is his wife's name. There's a Volney, which is his middle name. And then he just started naming things after random stuff. And in the end, he was actually making up words because I think he ran out of names in the English dictionary.
That's awesome. I was going to come up with a clever introduction using some of these words like delicatessen and brilliant and all of these.
And the last rose.
Yeah, right. But I got behind the eight ball and couldn't do it. But I do want to ask about Bottle Zero and what reference that has. What meaning does that have?
Well, I think that's the year 2000, and that's the first bottle of wine. That's our first vintage. And remember, we're planting bits and dribs and drabs of all these different varietals, and so that bottle is the entire vintage of that year, and with 5 berries of this and 1 bunch of this and 2 berries of that, and I'm sure it's a god-awful wine, and I'm never going to open it because it's better as a story than as an actual bottle of wine.
You only have 1 bottle of that.
That's it.
Interesting. That blending aspect must have been quite the process.
Well, there was no blending. I mean, you just throw them all in the container, and it's a field blend.
It's a field blend. And wouldn't that, I mean, how many glasses of wine would it take before you're like, oh, the hell with it, I'm opening this bottle, I want to know?
No, never,
not going to happen. Never. Behind lock and key.
No, then it would be gone.
It would be gone. That's the whole the bummer of a wine such as that. But do you have it prominently displayed in your tasting room?
Oh, sure. I mean, because it's worth a story as it has been here.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
All right, one more break.
You want one more break? Okay, we'll go on one more break, and when we come back, we're going to have the last red of the day.
Welcome back to Wine Time Fridays, episode 229. We are with a guest, Jerry Eisterhold of TerraVox. We've already tasted through 3 great wines, and these have been really surprising to us, but we knew nothing about them.
Well, we never had it. So this is going, again, we strongly suggest trying new wines because you'll never know what you'll hit upon. Right now, we're a 3 for 3, and I have no doubt this is going to hit as well. We've had the 2021 Albania, $27 at the winery or online. The 2023 Stark Star Rosé, $22 at the winery online. And the 2021 Cloida, $39 at the winery or online. And I just now opened the 2021 Lomanto, which is $42 at the winery. Oh, I guess we should pour it.
A little, just a little.
There we go.
That's very dark. Very dark.
Well, Jerry, I know I sound like a broken record, but why don't you tell us a little bit about this grape?
Well, Lomanto is there actually is some acreage of that planted down in Texas. So a lot of these others, like Cloida, I think we're the only place in the country that is actually growing that. I think Stark Star, as I said, I think that had been planted. Others. I don't know if anybody else has Albania, but Lomanto, there are plantings of that, and you can get some from. I don't know. Fairhaven, I think, is one of the vineyards down there. So I would say it tends to not put out a lot of bricks. We're about a week away from harvesting it up here. It's a fairly large berry, fairly open growth in the canopy, which is a characteristic. There's like 3 or 4 of the varietals we have that kind of are of that family and of that morphology, we'll say. And we did try, because it's so low in sugar typically. We did try. I mentioned we do experiments to see what works one year, one the other. We thought, in the Veneto they do a reposado where they will take the grapes and lay them out in the sun and try to increase the concentration of sugars, etc. All it did was increase the concentration of fruit flies, and we kind of lost that vintage. So, when you do these experiments, sometimes the answer is no.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, right? How do you know until you try?
Exactly. As they say in the Marines, that good judgment comes from experience and experience comes from bad judgment.
And the Marines. That's a good saying.
Here's a toast to Tyler.
Tyler. My son is a Marine.
Well, in our day job, one of the projects we did was the National Marine Corps Museum. So when he goes there, he should check that out.
He's stationed in England right now, so
My goodness.
so he'll have to go.
All right, I just need to review on this. This Albania, 8.4% alcohol. This,
Nope, 9.
well, it shows on the label 8.4% alcohol by volume. The Star Rosé, 8.5%. As Shelley pointed out, maybe the sweeter of the two, but it's not sweet.
It's not sweet.
It's not sweet. Yeah, very fruity. This lovely Cloida, 9.4% alcohol by volume. Now we're getting into the heavy alcohol. Shelley, now we've got the heavy alcohol wine. This Lomanto, 9.9% alcohol. All of these are under 10%.
That's amazing. Just amazing.
We talked about maybe moving to New York last week. Maybe we should talk about moving to Missouri. This is amazing. What are some of the dishes you would pair with this wine, Jerry?
Oh, I don't know. You go straight to the meats, I think. Any kind of little grilled lamb chops was the first thing that comes to mind.
Oh, yeah. This one has like a strawberry candy on the taste.
Yeah, but like a dark chocolate, right?
No, just a strawberry candy. Like those little candies I have, they're like a marshmallow that you get in Canada.
Yeah, I don't eat those.
You haven't tasted. You wouldn't know.
Maybe we should pair that with this. We are having cheeseburgers tonight. Something tells me this would really go well with that. My mouth is actually watering looking at this glass of wine. It's serious. This is amazing. This is far surpassing any expectation I had going into this. Far surpassing.
And how much of this grape do you have on hand?
I have an AutoCAD program where I can tell you exactly how many vines we have, but I'd say maybe a quarter of an acre.
Quarter of an acre.
So like I said, we have 14 total acres in production or near production, and it's divided up amongst like 40 varietals right now. Most of them, we're trying to get up to the point where we can have at least a barrel or a pallet to sustain a supply chain, like if a distributor wanted to pick them up. And then there's another category that are all the smaller plantings. Because there's still some experimentation going on what we need to do for some of these varietals.
Yeah, I can imagine there will be a lot.
Do you think that this is essential to the American wine culture, is that people get to know some of these native grapes?
Yeah.
Well, I think they had better. There's actually we've gotten a fair amount of interest from like Italy and France about these varietals because they are concerned about changing conditions over there. not just climate change, but just productivity and disease resistance and pest resistance, and all that that introducing this genetic material into that can have a benefit. But right now it's illegal to commercially grow these grapes over there. But that's their problem. I think here it's simply a matter of exploring this diversity and seeing what fits in what place. We're essentially a data point of one. I mean, one would hope that in 20 states these grapes might be grown to see where does Cloeta actually shine and have the best expression of itself as a fruit in a wine. We don't know. And some of those that we rejected, maybe they would be fine somewhere else. Sure. We have to start somewhere. So it's really kind of going blind unto the dark night.
Wouldn't that be an interesting turn of the tables when we're starting to send Europe some of our vines,
Well, they did use American rootstock, right, to help with phylloxera over there?
Yeah, well, that's a whole story that the Missouri State entomologist, Charles Valentine Riley, along with Emile Planchon out of Montpellier, France, was the one that discovered or identified the phylloxera bug as the cause of all the vineyards dying in Europe. And Munson was one of the apostles of using grafting onto rootstocks, many of which he identified to basically save the vines of Europe. So 97, 98% of the vines of the world are vinifera vines planted on rootstocks that are either American or derived from American sources. Now, the other smatterings, there's the French-American hybrids that were basically bred by French, introducing some of this American genetic material to make something that was resistant, like, Chardonnay and Vidal and things like that. And but we're the third branch is simply planting the American vines that were already resistant to the louse because they had co-evolved with it. So these vines are all on their own roots. They're not grafted or anything.
Oh.
That's amazing. Yeah. It's so interesting because many of the fruit trees here in North Idaho they've been grafted onto rootstock that's much more hardy. We had minus 15 degrees here mid-January here in North Idaho. And
which is unusual.
It is unusual, but some of these fruit trees would not be able to withstand it if they weren't grafted onto some very hardy grape stock or rootstock. I'm going to take a little time out for a second while our dog thinks that she's going to throw up. Lucy, what the hell did you eat? Are you done?
Do you want me to take her out? Sorry.
Okay. I don't know. She got into something outside. Okay, we're back.
All right.
Yep. Some wines we enjoyed this week. Shelley, do you want to read that, please?
Some wines we enjoyed this week. Beck's Riesling, Rivaro Rosé, J. Bookwalter Reader's Chardonnay, and Sauvignon Blanc, and Rosé. Tenimenti Ricci Brunello di Montalcino, Martin Ray Chardonnay, and Bodega San Román Tinto.
Román, thank you. Yes, and by the way, this lineup is fantastic. Some things coming up today, like we said at the opening, is National Chianti Day. I think it's National Chianti. Yep, National Chianti Day. We did not have a Chianti tonight. I think we had a lot better, to be honest. Anyway, we've got on September 10th, which is coming up, International Port Wine Day. On the 20th is International Grenache Day. Who knows? We might pull out a Grenache for that. October 5th, International Vranic Day. The 6th is National Orange Wine Day. We will definitely do an episode on orange wine. Let's see. We've got the
International Pinotage
on the 12th, International Pinotage Day. The 25th, International Champagne Day. Every day could be that. Let's be honest. 31st, International Carignan Day. And we've got two wines coming up. And one of them is next week. Gavin with Upper Bench Winery, as well as another Canadian winery, Roche, after that. And we're probably going to do an episode that may have a few wines we picked up from Canada to bring down, because we were pretty blown away about that. Wines from Finger Lakes, wines from Missouri, wines from Canada. This is fantastic. And this is what's really fun about the wine world, is that open mind enough to experiment and try new things. And Jerry, you are killing it there at TerraVox.
Well, thank you.
These are outstanding, sensational wines. And to your point, we'd put these up against any luxury wine, really. But you're not paying luxury wine prices, which is pretty cool. A huge thanks to our sponsors today, CBA Gourmet, 3D Kitchens by Design, and of course, J. Bookwalter Wines. Jerry, thank you very much for spending some time with us.
Well, thank you. And, we're really proud of our Norton port, so you should try that for your port tasting.
I was going to ask you if you had a port when we said international port wine. We'll have to order some of that.
There was a banana splits day, and I surprised Shelley with making banana splits, and then I pulled up with 4 different port style, 2 ports and a couple port style wines that we paired with that. It was actually pretty good. It was a lot of fun.
It was a very sugary night.
It was a very sugary night. With a little bit of knowledge, wine becomes a lot less overwhelming. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Jerry, for being here today. If you have a chance, look in the show notes. Look at TerraVox. We've got a link in there to all of these wines, A, and B, just the TerraVox website. And any of these wines would be worthy of a purchase, period. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week with Gavin from Upper Bench Winery.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Hey, Jerry.
Thank you for spending part of your day to wind down with Shelley and Phil. Remember, you can listen to any episode of the Wine Time Fridays podcast by visiting winetimefridays.com or wherever you get your podcasts. And join us on our Wine Time Fridays Facebook page, Instagram, or on Twitter, which is @VintageTweets, for daily conversation. Until next week, here's our toast to you. To health, wealth, abundance, gratitude, peace on earth, and of course, romance.
Jerry, these are unbelievable. They are very good.
Yeah, well, put out the word. Hopefully.
Oh, there's no doubt.
You will.
I get nervous sometimes when we go into these episodes and I have no clue. I'm like, what if we really don't like the wines, right? Man, this is not the case at all.